Babylon is one of the most divisive movies of 2022. For some viewers, it was a 3 hour long disaster. One critic declared it a defecating elephant of a movie. Others have hailed its ambition and consider it one of the best modern films about Hollywood. I myself have seen people online who don't believe it will receive fair recognition for its greatness until the end of the decade. Whatever your opinion, it can't be denied that Damien Chazelle put his heart and soul into the movie. In fact, Chazelle had been working towards Babylon for 15 years. He enjoyed the research process so much, he admitted that it took a conscious decision to finally call it quits and tell a story about what he learned. And as long as Babylon's final cut is, just over 3 hours, the original script would have probably made it 40 minutes longer, which is a testament to how many different angles of the time period Chazelle wanted to explore. I usually find discussions about movie quality to be pretty boring, but Babylon is a unique case. I think the ingredients are there for it to be widely considered a masterpiece, but the film overextends itself in some areas, especially in the last hour. Perhaps a more focused final cut could have better emphasized the fantastic aspects of Babylon. Now, ultimately, I think a big part of a movie's lasting legacy is the truthfulness of its central themes. Will people 50 years from now be able to watch Babylon and take something away that's applicable to their own lives? That's a question I want to consider because I think if the answer is yes, some of the pacing and plot shortcomings will be forgiven in the long term. The very first time I saw the trailer for Babylon, I was most intrigued by what Chazelle wanted the story to be about. There are very few plot lines presented in the trailer. It's mostly just people partying and freaking out about what they've gotten themselves into. My suspicion was that it was destined to be a traditional rise and fall story. I thought we were going to watch a handful of characters reach the height of fame and glory, and then be undone by their own destructive behavior. The title of the film implies that story. The ancient city of Babylon is a symbol of decadence and pride in the Old Testament, eventually receiving harsh punishment by God for its sins. But Damien Chazelle's movie is not primarily about moral judgment. The inhabitants of Babylon are not suddenly struck down by righteous fury, there's no single moment when things fall apart. Babylon is more about how the sun slowly sets on people and what the consequences can be for refusing to accept that inescapable process. This message is set into motion by the opening party. Stylistically, the first things you notice are the colors and the saturation. The entire space is painted with extremely warm, highly saturated colors. It suits the vibe of the party perfectly because not only is it debaucherous and decadent, but many of the people there are playing a character so they can get paid to play a character. Nellie and others like her want to be noticed, so the high saturation almost acts as a fake tan or something. It makes it feel like the chaos and passion of the party is concealing the realities beneath the people that make it up, which it is, of course. But eventually, the party comes to an end. Now, for Jack, he's the biggest movie star in Hollywood, so he goes to work, and Nellie gets called to set for the first time. So even though they aren't party deities anymore, they get to work towards something that gives them purpose and meaning. In other words, they aren't people stuck in dead-end jobs that cling to the doorknob as they're finally escorted out. They have something to fill their time in between the parties. When Nellie arrives at the movie set, the image desaturates and becomes very bright. The sun acts as Nellie's first spotlight in a way. And I love how the first day on set demonstrates how extremely disordered people are able to create the grand illusion. When Jack drinks at the party, he's just like everyone else enjoying the moment. When he drinks on set, he's a degenerate alcoholic. But despite that, when the camera rolls, he pulls it together for the sake of the picture. Jack is interesting in that his lowest points occur when he's dormant. When he's not making a movie or partying, Jack doesn't know how to navigate the world. The same could be said about Nellie. Excess and creativity becomes their oxygen. When they're deprived of it, tragedy and humiliation follows. And on a side note, Chazelle said he wanted the massive set pieces to always have extra actions happening in the background of the frame, comparing his vision to Apocalypse Now. He achieves that ambition. It's pretty remarkable. Now, the story of Babylon becomes easy to project once Nellie gets called to set. She's going to become a star. Or in her own mind, she's going to be treated like the star she knows herself to be. And once this transition takes place, we start to see the color blue become more prominent. The culture assigns Nellie a persona. She's the movie star, life of the party, who everyone wants to know. It's a persona she inhabits during the opening party. But that isn't a complete portrait of who she is. She has a dysfunctional relationship with her father and a mother living in a mental institution. When she visits her mother with Manny, she wears a very cool blue outfit. The blue acts as the inverse to the circus orange. I think it marks the deep realities that exist outside of the party life. Another example is when Nellie wakes up after the first party in her impoverished bedroom. She still has on her red dress, but the walls around her are blue. That's her existence outside of the party, which she so desperately wants to change. Entire videos could be made on how color is used in Babylon. It denotes the wealth of characters, their psychological state, the culture of their environment, and it remains true to the time period. You can't help but appreciate Chazelle and his team's work in that arena. Now, once sound is introduced into the industry, the careers of Jack and Nellie begin their gradual decline. The productions require more order and stability to capture sound, so volatile personalities like Jack and Nellie are forced into a harsh adaptation process, a process that they never fully complete. To go along with the sound transition, the studios also start having their pictures adhere to stricter moral standards. This shift causes Manny to force Faye into divorcing herself from Nellie, which he believes is essential for recreating Nellie's reputation, and the color for this scene is interesting as well. Half his face is covered by shadow, the other is hard lit by an aquamarine color. For me, I think it acts as the other end of the extreme. It's as loud a color as the ones that make up the party, but it represents the opposite culture. For Chazelle, a culture of repression. So on the subject of morality, I believe Chazelle wanted to demonstrate that there are negatives on both ends of the spectrum. The wild, decadent parties amplify people's most violent and destructive urges, but the judgmental, quasi-royal parties cause people to hide who they are. The latter culture is unsuitable for Nellie and Jack. Their careers limp on into the 30s, fueled only by the dying light of their former glory. Jack's days of leading epics are over. He just becomes a name that producers can slap onto a poster for a hopeless production. Nellie's acting career is fully torpedoed by the financiers after her implosion at the party. So with their meaningful careers over, what are they left with? Jack is left with a long line of divorces and no children. Nellie has no friends and no relationship with her parents. Jack cannot endure his new life and kills himself. And Nellie becomes the last one at the party who's afraid to leave. Even with death knocking on the door, Nellie wants to keep on dancing. Their lives send a clear message. If you're lucky enough to achieve your dream and experience life at the top of the world, don't be fooled into thinking it'll last forever. As the old adage goes, no empire lasts forever. One day you'll have to step off the stage and allow someone to take your place. And when this happens, you need something to keep you going. Manny barely escapes Hollywood with his life, and when we find him 20 years later, he has a family, something to give him meaning. He steps into the theater for the first time in ages and watches Singin' in the Rain. At first, he's mortified, recognizing that the efforts of his career are laughed at now. But eventually he comes to the realization that he played a part in what's come to be. I'm not a huge fan of the ending montage, but I think it's intended to visualize a feeling that Manny has, which is, someday the movie I'm watching right now will be history. The industry will move on to something newer and better, and those enjoying center stage now will be pushed aside, just like Nellie, Jack, and me were. So the smile on his face at the end is a smile of relief. He finally sits back and enjoys the role he played in ushering the new world, instead of being upset that the old world, his world, had to end. That's a lesson that Nellie and Jack could not accept. They wanted the party to last forever, and it ruined them. While characters like Faye and Sydney were okay with quietly leaving out the back door. The message is not only applicable to those in show business. We all know the archetype of the kid who peaked in high school and can't move on from his time in the limelight. There's a season for everything. If winter comes around and you're putting on shorts and a tank top, you're going to freeze to death. And Hollywood historically has had some very cruel winters that many people didn't survive. For the foreseeable future, Babylon will be known as the Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie movie that tanked at the box office. But as time goes on, I hope that audiences come to appreciate Chazelle's attempt to show how people can be broken by the advancement of time. I don't think it's a masterpiece, that label is thrown around far too loosely nowadays, but there are many aspects of Babylon that deserve high praise, including the central message. So I hope time ends up being kinder to Damien Chazelle than it is to the characters of Babylon. His very first movie, Whiplash, is one of the best movies of the 2010s. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It is amazing. Damien Chazelle's a master filmmaker. He has some very interesting ideas. And I think Babylon is only more proof of that, even though it's not perfect. Again, the final hour is not the best. But I hope we see him making movies again as soon as possible. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And if you have your own thoughts on Babylon, make sure to leave them in the comments. It's been a long time since I've seen a movie that generated such split opinions. But thanks for stopping by, guys. I greatly appreciate it as always. Stay safe and have a fantastic rest of your day. I will talk to you soon.